Hello, welcome to this installment of the Toy Storage Nation series, TSN Conversations Unplugged. This series is based on questions we most often get at Toy Storage Nation. Today's topic is capitalizing on the Marina market. Today's participants are Neil Dyer, President, BlueGate; Andy Hayes, Director of Acquisitions at Go Outdoors and Safe Harbor Development; Hamish, President and Founder of Ford Building Company; and Mychal Gorden, CEO and Realtor of Desert Land Group. Thank you all for being here. Before we begin, I was hoping we could briefly introduce yourselves and give us a bit of background. Neil, can we start with you?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having us on, Amy, and this will be a lot of fun. So I'm Neil Dyer, based out of Nashville, Tennessee. I run the BlueGate Boat and RV and Marina storage platform for Madison Capital Group. We started this platform back in 2021, and we have grown it to over 20 properties throughout the country. Started expanding into the marina space in 2023, and we just love all things alternative storage. We are based out of Charlotte, North Carolina. We're part of a larger real estate investment company that also covers multifamily development, self-storage, and obviously boat and RV and marina. So we're excited to be on and happy to share some insight about the emerging trends in the marina space.
Thank you, Neil. And Andy.
Hey, thank you for having us. Well, my name's Andy Hayes. I'm with Go Outdoors. I handle our acquisitions here, which Go Outdoors is a joint venture between our parent company, Safe Harbor Development, which common misconception, no correlation to Safe Harbor Marinas there, as well as Monarch Alternative Capital, who is our private equity capital partner supporting really our growth on the capital side. But our main focus is on outdoor recreational hospitality assets. We have 11 marinas in our portfolio, along with 3 RV resorts, and then we have a water park and a few restaurants in there as well. But we launched this JV in June of 2023, and have since been targeting marinas all throughout the Northeast and Southeast, and really just looking to grow this portfolio.
Thank you, Andy. And I wanted to welcome you to the Toy Storage Nation Advisory Board.
Yes, thank you very much. Honored to be here and
And,
excited for future growth of everything.
and Neil, thank you for your service as well.
Yes, thank you, Amy. It's a great group and excited to be a part of it.
Thank
And
you.
welcome aboard, Andy.
Thank you
And
very much.
Hamish, I would love to hear your background.
I'm the president of Forge Building Company. We specialize in building self-storage and steel buildings. Started the company in 2007, and we work nationwide, building self-storage facilities and steel buildings.
Thank you. And Mychal.
Yeah, Amy, thanks for having me today. We're based in Lake Havasu City, Arizona. We're a land development and real estate company here. A little non-traditional in what we do, I guess, more of an owner, developer, operator. We've built a number of subdivision projects. We developed and operate our own marina here called the Havasu Riviera Marina from the ground up. So fairly new to the world. Not a lot of ground up marinas of this size built anymore. That's been an exciting deal for us. But we also specialize in boat and RV storage. We helped found a company called Lux Locker originally when it started. Although we're not involved in Lux Locker anymore, we've started a new company called Toy Shack Storage. All told, we've built and developed over 15 large boat and RV storage projects, and are really finding a synergy between the boat and RV storage world, warehouse storage, individual storage, concierge services, and the marina industry. Similar, I'm sure, to Neil and Andy and some of the things they're doing. But so yeah, that's our focus. We do kind of a diverse portfolio of stuff in the Western United States. Nowadays focused on subdivision work, marinas, and boat and RV storage.
Thank you, Mychal. You know, it's exciting to have all of you here and that you have kind of, feet in both worlds, the marina side, boat and RV storage side, and see the crossovers and synergies. And that's about a lot about what we're going to talk about today. And at the end of the day, when we think about marinas, and you please, if you don't agree with me, tell me I'm wrong and we can get into it. Marina it's very high-end toy storage in a certain way. And one of the highest you could probably get. And Mychal and Hamish, thank you. I know we had one of your facilities up on our website probably about 6 months ago, a combination that you guys had partnered with Forge, working with Mychal for his facility. And that was exciting for us because we were able to see some of the names that we'd been seeing in the RV storage, side, from the development side, vendors and whatnot, coming into the marina side. So that was a really cool thing for us to be able to highlight. So I want to go ahead and get started. We have a lot to cover today. And to be able to get into a real conversation about what's going on out there, I'd first like to talk about the current marina market. I know that there's a lot happening. Where do you see it right now? And where do you see it going over the next 5 years? And Andy, can we start that off with you?
We can. Sorry, I was looking for my unmute button there. But yeah, I mean, I think it's by no surprise to everybody. There's a ever increasing institutional interest in the marina industry here as of lately. Of course, Safe Harbor Marina has made the large splash with their recent acquisition, which I believe is over 170 marinas now. Um, our group working with Monarch Alternative Capital, which we approached back in June of 2023, just ahead of that transaction with Safe Harbor then, and all these other groups entering the space. But um, yeah, I mean, very high barrier to entry asset class, which just naturally brings in these institutional groups, and we're it's just a very attractive asset to own currently with these multi-year waiting lists throughout certain markets, specific slip types are in high demand, just low supply, and there's an aging population of owners so that you can capitalize on some of these trades. But I mean, the post-pandemic surge of outdoor recreation in and of itself is really just making an impact on everything. So we see a lot of future growth poised for the future, and we're excited.
Thanks, Andy. Neil, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, absolutely. I think timing's very favorable for the marina space. I mean, it's really what we've seen, and it's very similar to the fundamentals of boat and RV storage space, and what I call the emergence of the alternative real estate asset class sector is really where we have seen the explosion and the interest from. Uh, I would say emerging and institutional capital coming into this space. Equities just continuing to find new strategies that they want to diversify and they want exposure to. Like what Andy said, what we've seen with Safe Harbor and what we've seen with the big groups like Monarch and Blackstone, and a lot of heavy hitters in real estate, become exposed and enter the market. It's very similar to what we're experiencing with the boat and RV storage space. Part of the issues from institutional equity having, not being able to enter this space, so there weren't portfolios available. So we've had the large institutional groups, we've had kind of, I would say, mid-sized private equity groups build large portfolios, and the fundamentals for what we see in marinas are very similar to boat and RV storage, and it's why we're all looking into both of these asset class. And what I see within both of these spaces is just we're what got us into marinas is we wanted to increase our exposure and increase our ability to scale within emerging alternative real estate asset sectors. And so that's why we saw boat and RV storage and marinas being a perfect complement to each other. Again, what the large institutional groups are looking for, scale and the ability to make billion-dollar transactions to buy these great high-performing assets. And so that's what brought us to the marina side is, all right, well, we want to scale faster. We want to increase our size. We want more assets that we could go and target and acquire and build. and it was a very easy, I would say a very easy pitch to our investors who already liked these alternative assets to get exposure to more alternative assets. I think that's kind of what we're seeing is now institutional equity is starting to have an ability to access these type of investments where 10, 15 years they didn't have that ability in the past. Everybody's getting smart and can see that they can perform, and and it all comes down to everybody's chasing yield. There's much better yield from an investor to invest in a boat and RV storage and marina assets than it is just kind of the tried and true traditional major commercial real estate plays like office, industrial, multifamily, and retail. There's definitely some more meat on the bone for investors in this space if you're able to scale properly and operate the businesses.
Thank you, Neil. And I'm going to piggyback a question that I was going to ask later on, but I would think also, and tell me if I'm wrong, it's got to be helpful that if you're already in boat and RV storage, you understand the mindset of a recreational enthusiast, especially folks that have very expensive boats, right? Does that help play into understanding who your clientele will be in the marina market, and does that give you an advantage?
Yeah, I would say it does give us an advantage on knowing our customer and the clientele base that we're going after. But I will say, and everybody else can chime in on this, these both of these assets, boat and RV storage and marinas, they're two totally different animals. Boat and RV storage, obviously it's very similar to self-storage. Part of the pros of why people like self-storage and boat and RV storage, they're very easy to manage, very little headache, very little hands-on, management at those type of properties. Marina, on the other hand, is a lot like hospitality, and it's more of hospitality plus storage, but it's very management intensive. You have to, a lot of these marinas have about 3 to 4 different businesses that are part of the property. You'll have a retail store, you'll have a restaurant, you'll have obviously your marina slips, and you can have some RV resorts. So you're managing a hotel, you're managing a restaurant, and you're managing storage. And in some places, you could be managing, boat repair and boat sales. So it's a much more hands-on, requires a much more diverse business background to manage it. But that's part of why we have and we see more opportunity in this asset class, more yield and more upside in this asset class if you could come in and successfully handle that type of business endeavor.
Thank you, Neil. Did anyone else have anything else to add?
Yeah, I mean, the customers are seeking a sense of place and community. It's really not just a storage location, as Neil referenced there. I mean, the hospitality services that are really demanded these days, are these Class A concierge style, family friendly amenities with upgraded docks and security, potential food and beverage, and your retail, and just kind of this one-stop shop for the recreational boater really just goes a long way. And the customers definitely create a sense of loyalty if you supply those things, and you're able to really command some strong rents in a competitive environment.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting what Neil talked about. They are two totally different animals. And we use this label boat and RV storage, but we've found building 15 plus projects and owning and operating projects, it's amazing how low a percentage of the units actually have boats or RVs in them, right? So they really have just become a large, oversized, amenitized storage facility for individuals, businesses, etc. We find more classic cars, business assets, man caves, hangout spaces in these units on the boat and RV side of it than sure, you're going to always have some that just use them for boats and RVs. But I think for us, what we've learned out of it and doing both and building and operating a marina from the ground up and layering in all the things Neil talked about to, building and operating and selling and leasing storage is the one common denominator in there is that concierge service, the taking care of that clientele. And I think that's where, whether you're in the storage space, we're finding more and more clients that want their toys detailed in their storage unit, that want, their new boat delivered to their storage unit. They want someone to take care of their stuff there. So whatever you can do to take care of the client there is kind of becoming the same, at least in our marina and in the marinas we're working with right now. The more of those layers you can add on and those amenities and services that you can add on, coming down to that customer service aspect and that concierge aspect of things, I think is really where at least the higher end marina industry and the higher end boat and RV industry is headed. And that's where we're trying to focus right now, is the crossover of that, or those two asset classes tied together with the service side of it.
Sure. Thank you. Just one more question, kind of on the overall investment side, and Neil and Andy, thank you for covering a great deal of that and why it's attractive to investors right now, and the capital coming in. And you talked about, institutional capital coming in, but is the majority of the market still of marinas still family owned? I've heard a lot of times it's a family owned type of business. Are you still seeing the breadth that's who owns most marinas, or is the institutional capital really starting to come in and take over?
I could probably speak to this a decent bit here. So I've actually manually sourced just about every marina that's in existence east of Texas, and we're still building out that database. Currently, we have roughly 2,600 total leads that we've sourced ownership on, and out of those is certainly dominated by these family ownership groups and privately held companies, as opposed to these institutional groups that come in. I've got a document pulled up of we basically do these portfolio analysis where we're monitoring the competition, and you do have Safe Harbor and Suntex kind of dominating the landscape, and then Loggerhead Marinas falls there. We have in third with IGY, and some of these other groups trickling down. But the spread in terms of total locations owned, once you get past Suntex and Safe Harbor, is pretty eye-opening there. But yeah, just going back in terms of like kind of just general motivation to sell as well, from our experience, it really comes down to timing. The bulk of these family-owned and privately held companies that are involved in marinas is typically kind of a multi-generational holding for their family. And as they are getting older in age, though, they may not have a clear succession plan in place. And with it being such an operationally intensive asset and all the hospitality services that we just discussed being in play, people are starting to kind of come around to, entertaining the sale, which is just kind of further heightened by this institutional interest, because people are realizing, this is, I have something that's, pretty valuable. Maybe we should start to hear these groups out. But it's certainly still very fragmented.
Got it. Thank you, Andy.
Yeah, I think what Andy pointed out is a very good point. That number that he mentioned, 2,700 marinas, that may sound big, but it really, in the grand scheme of things, is very small when you compare it to other real estate assets, across the country. I think it's kind of on par with what we see with boat and RV storage. Both of these asset classes on a total market size are much smaller than other traditional asset types already out there. So that creates part of the challenge. And again, that's why our company mandate, we decided to grow. And I think that's why we've all decided to grow in both of these asset types, to help grow our numbers, to help scale further. But I think what Andy said, he hit the nail on the head. I mean, it's definitely a mom and pop dominated market, but we're seeing the institutional groups push their weight around. They're very, very aggressive. You're seeing more institutional consolidation in coastal markets, and kind of top 50 MSAs. I would say kind of lake markets are kind of like the Wild West a little bit. Those are definitely, lake markets are definitely dominated still to this day by mom and pop owners. But we're starting to see, groups like Andy, groups like myself, and even some of the larger players, the institutional players, starting to diversify into some of the higher end lake markets that are attached to larger MSAs. So we're starting to see more institutional capital flood into the lakes. But Mychal and Hamish, they can talk to this as well. I think it really is a very competitive. I would say marinas could potentially be more competitive than the boat and RV space because of the inability to develop marinas. Boat and RV storage and all of the other spaces that we play around in, very easy to develop. We're developing a marina down in the Gulf Shores area, and I'll tell you that permitting process is a pain. You're dealing with federal government, you're dealing with the Army Corps of Engineers. I mean, you're dealing with utility providers. I mean, there's I would say an extra over and beyond layer of bureaucracy that you deal with in the marinas that really discourages development. It's really, I believe, and Andy, you probably know this better than I do. I mean, I believe the total inventory throughout the country in marinas over the last 10 years has potentially decreased. Is that right? Because there's been a lot of marina redevelopment into other, uses. The number of new starts in marinas is very, very few throughout the country. So you still you haven't seen an increase in supply. The supply's been very flat, which again it bodes well for operational performance.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, supply is certainly decreasing throughout these coastal markets where the waterfront land is just so much more valuable than, say, your winter dry storage. Like up in the Northeast, condos are going up like crazy, and there's just people don't even have anywhere to store their boats during the winter, which goes back to these synergies that are prevalent between boat and RV storage and marinas. The wet slip availability is also decreasing because of those a few things that Neil mentioned there as well. But these seasonal operations, boat and RV storage and marinas really go in tandem with each other and can be very complementary. It's just really the transportation aspect and logistical constraints that revolve around that, which is also.
Given that the barrier to entry is probably, you were talking, Neil, there's all kinds of entitlement issues. I would think there's also a lot of environmental issues that you have to
Oh
deal
yeah.
with that you're not, that I've heard are difficult. So with the marinas that are being purchased by the larger players coming in, what are they ever coming in and increasing the number of slips? What's being done is the consideration to come in and upgrade? Is there a different level that boating enthusiasts are looking for? And Hamish might be able to speak to that as well, as far as, existing marinas. What are they looking to do? Is it upgrading or expanding? Who wants to take that one on?
Well, that's certainly what I mean. I'll start, I guess. You're absolutely right, and that's what Neil alluded to. The barrier to entry in the marina world is extremely high. I think in the marina we just finished building here in Lake Havasu, we had over 12 state or federal agencies that we had to coordinate with to ultimately get the approvals to build this thing. It was a 10 to 15 year play before we opened the door, and put a boat in the water, put a slip in the water. So very, very challenging in today's world. And it's both land related, agency related, and environmentally related. There's so many factors that people are concerned about today, and rightly so, that really prevent new marinas from being developed in a lot of places. But yeah, from our perspective, because we do the development side of things more than acquiring assets, that's what we look at, right? We look at these family-owned marinas and these facilities that, sometimes it is easier to go in and purchase something that already has an entitlement, even though it's run down, even though it's, not up to par with today's market. And depending on where you're at and what you're doing, you might be able to get some support from the agencies if you're able to find something that needs some work. Now, the challenge there is when you get into that scenario, you may have a lot of upside potentially, but that means you also need a lot of capital to go chase that upside. And, that's the space we play in more than just acquiring and operating, is either building ground up or finding those diamonds in the rough where, you have a unique facility needs a little love, needs a little upgrade, needs a little, and then you use that to work with the agencies and potentially even get to some expansion potential out of those. But some of those things are hard to identify, before you acquire the facility and understand how far you can really take it. So there is some risk there when you get into that side of things.
Given that it's easy, nothing's ever easy, but an easier barrier to entry to go with an existing site. Is there an upshot or a reward from building from scratch? Why would somebody look at coming into this from a new development side, given all of everything that you're to be dealing with? Are there certain rewards that you're gonna see with that versus developing from an existing site?
Yeah, I mean, you have a clean slate, right? I mean, aside from obviously all the hurdles of working with the agencies and getting to a master plan that you can actually get entitled, you're able to learn from other marinas, learn from your experience, and whether that's in the design of the docks or where you place the restaurant or, what other amenities you put around it to support that from restaurants and, campgrounds and RV parks and other things. Like you have a clean slate to start with, where when you're buying an existing asset, sometimes it's cost prohibitive to tear something out that already has cash flow to it just to chase an idea of, well, we can make it better by wiping the slate and starting new. So when you have that clean slate and you can really, focus on what is the demand of the market today in that particular market, that particular lake, and then you can design a project to fit that. That's a special opportunity that's hard to find, because when you acquire something, you're acquiring a lot of times a limited entitlement that is hard to expand, or again, assets and improvements that are already in place that are either grandfathered in or hard to upgrade or hard to replace.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. And what we've seen, really most of the marinas that we buy, we typically have to do some major upgrades when we acquire these things. Boating preference has changed dramatically. In the last 5 years, and a lot of these marinas are 20 years old or 20 years or 20 years plus age. And what we've seen, obviously today, bigger boats, but boats are much bigger than they were 20 years ago. So a lot of times the slips are too small, or in dry stacks, the dry stacks are too small. They can't accommodate kind of the modern T-top boats. So you have to come in and, reshuffle your, as we would call it in storage, your unit mix, your unit sizes. We see that a lot. Andy mentioned this earlier. Today's marina customer, they want a marina where they don't have to move their boat. They want a place where they could get the repairs done on site. They want a restaurant where they could have drink and have lunch on site. They want to be able to refuel their boat on site. So if you don't have amenities, you got to build some amenities and build it for your modern customer, your today's customer. So there's a lot of work that goes on when you acquire. Very rarely have we been fortunate enough to buy kind of a as is, kind of ready to go type of marina. Typically there is some sort of capital improvement strategy that we have to undertake, especially if we're buying an existing older mom and pop style marina.
Thank
Yeah,
you,
and it's
Neil.
interesting, Neil. You find a lot of properties that become limited in that ability because that mom and pop operation, may have had cabins and a campground tied to their marina in the past, but that lakeshore or coastal land became so valuable, they sold off the cabins and now they're privately owned and have houses on them. They sold off the RV park in the back and, they have their little marina. Well, that's great. You have the slips, but you have no opportunity, no land, no space to
Yeah.
add the amenities and to try and bring, even though you have a certain number of slips, it's hard to bring them up to the standard and the amenitized package that higher end customer is looking for.
Yeah, totally.
What also is pretty interesting about marina construction over, especially like the past 2 years with supply chain constraints, inflationary costs, et cetera, is that most of the deals we've underwritten over the past year will actually trade below total replacement cost. Um, and just with marinas being so capitally intensive, especially on the redevelopment side, any greenfield opportunities, or it's just comes with a lot of cost and a lot of risk associated. So really, like most of the redevelopment that our group finds ourselves pursuing comes from just kind of these minor expansion opportunities throughout a harbor limit or up on the uplands. And maybe Mish can talk to this, but our group has found a lot of efficiency in some of these open air racks as opposed to these fully enclosed dry stack buildings, especially if we were to go out and build a new one. It
Mhm.
can be cost prohibitive, whereas not only do you assume some efficiency on the upfront cost end for these open air racks, also on the insurance side of the equation, which is a whole nother conversation in and of itself.
Thank you,
Yeah, and
Andy.
what's exactly what we're doing right now at our facility in Arizona. And Hamish is a big part of that. We're limited on our entitlement in terms of slips and what we can do on the water because of the jurisdictions. And we're limited on our shoreline that we have because of the public land around us. But we do have some fee simple land adjacent. We have some opportunity upland, and we're working with Hamish on more not your traditional dry rack storage, but warehouse storage, as well as individual what we would consider in this room boat and RV storage, that will all be, in effect tied to the marina via those services, concierge services, et cetera. So same thing for us. We continue to look, and a lot of times the best opportunities are across the road, upland from the actual waterfront itself. But it works today. There's people willing to pay for those services, and you can scale your marina a little bit, not on the water, but in the background.
Thank you, Michael. And you're
Seen,
segueing. I'm sorry. Did someone else
also,
have something to
yeah, I
add?
was just adding what I've seen in the marinas is the construction level of the new marinas versus the old marinas is night and day difference. There's old, a lot of them are falling apart, foam and the way the new ones are constructed, everything's galvanized. There's a lot more science into it, higher codes
Mhm.
um, on the construction so that they're protected so that they can survive the storms and things that weren't there in the past 20 years ago. So, that's added to, and that protection of those new boats, new bigger boats, it's all reflected in the type of construction that these new marinas are being built out of now.
And it's great with forage that, with what Michael was saying, you can help them on the dry storage side, but also the marina side and be able to work with the same partner. We talk about within boat and RV storage to be a class A, there's four simple things. It needs to be gated, fenced, paved in some manner. A true grid would count for that. But also it needs to be covered, either enclosed or canopy. For the bare minimum for a marina is having slips covered. Is that something of a requirement or in a sense, or a lot of slips still don't have covering?
A lot of slips still don't have covering,
Okay.
especially your older marinas and certain lakes and coastal areas. It's an entitlement issue as well. I mean, we built 462 slips here in Arizona, and through the core permitting and the efforts we had, we were able to only get 82 of those covered.
Okay.
For environmental reasons, with game and
Interesting.
fish and other things. So we would have loved to have covered all of them. The market certainly would have accepted that very well,
Yeah,
and the
I was
rates
gonna
we get
ask.
for those are very nice. But yeah, unfortunately, we even if we wanted to, we were limited on how much we could cover. From what we see, that's an amenity everyone would like to have in most markets, but we've seen challenges. And the hard part too is you go into an existing marina that wasn't built that way. It's not as simple as just throwing a canopy up. I mean, those things are heavy, and the engineering and the that has to go into the dock structure to support the canopy. It becomes cost prohibitive unless you're really starting over and rebuilding your docks at the same time in most locations. So I
Gotcha.
I was curious what Andy and Neil think and what in their marinas and what they're seeing. But yeah, I'd love to have more. It's just hard to get them sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, we can speak by experience, unfortunately, to some of the covered complications. We've had three separate claims where there's just a bunch of snow piles down on our docks, and then that freezes, expands, the weight increases, and we have a floating dock collapse and massive insurance claim, which so I feel like, covered docks versus uncovered docks really varies depending on the market, whether it's for just climate reasons, whether it's straight line winds that are heavily prevalent, ice and snow, or whatever else it may be. But I mean, there certainly can be a case to be made for commanding a higher rate for those covered docks. It's just, again, very dependent on the market and what effect it will have on insurance.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, I hadn't thought about that part.
absolutely. And I would say a big thing that I would say in my mind classifies Class A is just due to quality of construction. Again, a lot of these marinas are mom and pop. They weren't built with a certain spec in mind. A lot of them have just sheet metal roofs. So, you can have covered, but I wouldn't call it Class A. There's a lot of, marinas that are really high quality that are uncovered. So I would say it's more of just you can tell, by the quality of the materials used and how the property was built, whether or not it's a well constructed type of asset. So I would say it's more of newer marinas that are constructed with modern, marine techniques. Would be considered Class A in good quality markets
Thank you,
with
Neil.
amenities.
Yes, absolutely. And
Yeah,
hospitality.
yeah,
Yeah, I think
Um,
that hits the nail on the head. It's not one thing or the other, right? Like it's not necessarily the canopy or not necessarily the slip size or not necessarily this or that. It's the combination of amenities and the overall package you're able to provide that customer that makes it a Class A, highly sought after marina.
And it's weird, the customer preference really varies across markets. Like in some
yeah.
some locations, there'll be higher demand for to be in a dry stack versus others would be a wet slip. And sometimes it doesn't even add up and reflect the climate. If you, even though you're up in the Northeast and you would imagine they'd want to be in a dry stack, but they still prefer the wet slip. And it's it's kind of surprising, what those customer preferences are at times. It's really just kind of by popular demand, what's prevalent in that market seems to be what people draw themselves to.
Well, and I
Is
think you're
is
absolutely
convi-
right,
oh,
Andy.
sorry.
And I think the marina industry is just kind of leveling up to what is possible, right? Boats and toys are getting fancier and bigger, and a lot of places don't have a dry rack, or a lot of places don't have covered slips, or they don't have slips even big enough to accommodate their boat. So with the diversity that exists in the marina space, it's hard to really pinpoint what works and what doesn't. And it might work there. It doesn't even exist in that market today. So, it's just a matter of, I think, some time and kind of figuring out in general what people want. And it's an
Yeah.
ever-changing market for sure.
And with all the variables that we're discussing, what it shows is that good operations matter. Good providing services, providing, this, that, and other good operations can, can be your competitive advantage in this space.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
100%.
think convenience is always a driving factor with the amenities. Anyone that's ever pulled a boat and put it in and out of the water knows it's
Yes.
much easier to pull up in your vehicle, jump out of it with your cooler and jump on your boat and go.
That's why people love dry stack. They just
Yeah,
place it, in the water for you. It's great.
give them a call.
Yeah.
In most marinas, do they have the dry storage? Is that just the norm? Or is that, certain marinas choose to have it and certain don't?
Yeah, it's definitely not the norm, and it's definitely more prevalent on coastal areas than it is on inland lakes. A lot of it's just cost. You heard, I think, Neil or Andy speak
Yeah,
earlier. The cost of, especially today, building new dry rack storage, especially is pretty extreme. So you got to know that the market will actually, bear it and utilize it.
yeah,
But it also comes down to land and operations and all of those things
yeah.
too, and whether the market will bear it. So Neil, Andy, you probably know more than I do on that front, but it's definitely not the norm, and it works extremely well in some locations. And again, some locations have never even seen it, so whether it works or not is a little unknown at this time.
Yeah, I mean, also forklifts is a big part of the equation. We bought a few forklifts in the past
Oh
year,
yeah.
and they're, upwards of 400,000 once you pay all the taxes and transportation fees on top of the actual equipment. And then also just in addition to having that forklift service your dry stack, you need an extra backup.
Mhm.
You don't want to go down on 4th of July and not be able to service your customers and experience
Mhm.
a crowd showing up with pitchforks, which it happens every single year. At one of these marinas throughout the U.S., someone will lose a forklift on 4th of July, and it's
Ugh,
never a good.
what a day.
Yeah, and it's good. The operations scale up too, right? The insurance is higher. The skilled labor, the demand
Yeah.
for skilled labor is significantly higher when you start putting a, $500,000, $1 million boat three racks up in the air. It's a different ballgame.
But I mean, dry stacks can solve a lot of issues, especially with the high barrier to entry on just these various harbor limits that are in play. I mean, to get something entitled on the water is a lot more difficult than to get a dry stack entitled in our
Mhm.
experience. Um, so, I mean, being able to capitalize on the availability of the uplands and then just have your appropriate amount of staging, taxi docks to service those boats can make a world of a difference.
Thank you, Andy, and everyone for that. I have a kind of a three-part question. Um, Traditional boat and what we think more of traditional boat and RV storage. Does it make sense in some cases, one, for marina owners to kind of expand their thought and have a traditional boat and RV storage facility nearby, branded kind of under the same brand name, in that recreational enthusiasts may want to bring their RVs nearby? Maybe they've used them for other things, but they would like to keep them there. It's another place where you can store your boat. Maybe there aren't enough slips or, that type of thing, and have it nearby. So one is branding it under the Marina name, but also would it make sense for folks who are looking to get into boat and RV storage that aren't associated with the marinas to start looking around marinas for opportunities? So I guess
Yeah,
really
that
it's a
that,
two-part
that that's
question.
we there's a few we have multiple markets where we have both boat and RV storage and marinas in the same markets. Obviously, the power of your brand, the power of advertising across multiple properties is
Mhm.
very advantageous. At some of our properties, we have somebody that has a wet slip and they put their trailer on dry land. So that they will rent two spaces. Both, they'll rent a boat and RV storage spot and they'll rent a marina spot. So it's very helpful. Obviously, boat and RV storage, we don't have to have all the employees that we need for a marina. So it helps us on the boat and RV storage side where we can utilize some of our marina employee base during the slow seasons to help cover our boat and RV storage facility. So that's very helpful. But what we've seen is that when we field calls to our properties, sometimes they'll call the boat and RV storage facility when they're looking for a marina spot. So we have a need. So we have multiple types of units that we can sell to our customers. So we typically will have an availability of some sort of unit if you're looking for that in a given market. So it helps a lot there.
Thank you. Um, Hamish, are you seeing, any outreach yet from clients that are kind of in both markets that obviously they can utilize your services for the structures on a storage side, that maybe trying to figure out, okay, maybe we need some specialized slips covering, things like that, that you're able to provide on both ends, or has it been pretty much one or the other so far?
Well, the only crossover I have is with Luke and Mychal doing both.
You got the
Because
guy.
yeah, yeah. So anything else has been, the majority of my stuff has been boat and RV. Don't have a huge backlog of marina work or anything. It's really just with these guys. So
Got it. Yeah, it was really great to see, the crossover that could be done and the
But we
convenience
have
that it
been
would
doing
give for
a
him.
ton of boat and RV for a lot of other people nationwide.
I think what really comes down to too is like, you're almost every single RVer is a boater.
Yeah.
Um, Servicing same customers. Like we have this one marina in Nashville called Elm Hill Marina, and then we also have the adjacent Elm Hill RV Resort. So, I mean, we get a lot of crossover between those properties, and you get some RVers that come in, and we'll even rent a boat. So, I mean, you really are able to capitalize on that same customer base, which is the whole reason our group attended the Toy Storage Nation workshop in Dallas a few years ago. We were planning to really dive into boat and RV storage, and we still very well may.
Fantastic. Um, I know we've talked a lot about the white glove service that folks expect, having their boat brought to them, conveniences, amenities. Is there anything else you want to add on that level? Things that maybe folks might not think about that folks are willing to pay for or expectations? And then on top of that, I'd like to talk about, I've heard the mention of hotels being included in certain projects and those types of things. So kind of even expanding hospitality higher than just amenities, conveniences. And I know the restaurant side is big. So I guess I've asked a number of questions in one. So I'd like to hear of any concierge services we may not have talked about, the restaurant side and how important that is, and then hotel side.
Well, fuel would be the big one that we haven't discussed. Obviously, all the boats are fueling up every day, so that's the big one that here locally in Idaho, there's a lake a couple hours north that's just getting its first dock and first um, fuel station on it. So saves a lot of runs. Convenience again with those 5 gallon cans to the gas station for those boaters.
Yeah, I think that's what, we're focusing on layering in as much of that as the customer's looking for. And it seems like every time we offer something new, they're open to it. That idea of, being completely hands off for the customer, right? Like they call, they want their boat might be in their house up the street in our subdivision. It may be in our warehouse storage. It may already be in their slip. Either way, they want it fueled. They want it detailed before they get there. They
Mhm.
want the cooler full of ice and beer. They pre-order their lunch from the restaurant and whatever, they need a new surfboard. It's in the boat.
Mhm.
And they simply show up with their family. They walk down carrying nothing. They jump on their boat and they go. And then, same thing, we reverse that when they're done, right? They drop into a courtesy slip, they toss us the keys and they head up to their house or to their hotel or to their wherever, that might be. And we reverse that, right? We pull the boat, we refuel it, we detail it, we put it away wherever that might be. So all of those things are becoming more and more prevalent. And for us, it's the customer's looking for the best experience possible with the least amount of resistance.
Mhm.
And nothing ruins a weekend more than, a dad showing up with a family full of kids and their battery's dead or
Mhm.
their motor doesn't work or anything. And, that leads into like, okay, your surf boat just flat out broke. So let's get you a rental. Let's get you in a boat as quickly as possible
Yeah.
and make that experience seamless so you can be the hero for the weekend instead of it having it ruin the whole weekend for the family.
Yeah, and like in terms of just being informational for the podcast's sake and some of these creative ways you're able to kind of improve the customer experience, especially with low overhead and just kind of operational demand is like recently we've started to roll out Wi-Fi across our marinas, which has been extremely well perceived by our customers. Initially thinking, with access to hotspots and just new technology, Starlink, and all these other different ways you're able to, log in, it doesn't necessarily resonate with the older age of boaters. They're not as advanced, but if they're able to just log on to Wi-Fi service that they're only paying $5 to $10 a month for, then it really can make a difference. You just hop on your boat, you throw on a sports game of whatever your choice may be, and it just really improves their experience. And our customers been raving about it in our reviews and surveys that we throw out there, and just one other creative
Thanks, Andy. I think one thing that we've really found with Toy Storage Nation is folks, obviously our main focus has been Class A boat and RV storage, but we've really learned we should just be calling it Class A toy storage, right? Because you've got everything involved. We've even gotten into the truck parking side. We're looking even into the aviation side. But at the end of the day, it's investors and developers who are looking for markets that make sense. And these markets do make sense now. And that's why we do want to cover information in some of these other areas where there's synergies and tie-overs. And I think we did cover most of it, but please tell me if there's another kind of tie-in, synergy, similarity between boat and RV storage and marina that we haven't gotten to today. I think we've gotten to most of them, but if there's anything that we haven't, I guess now it's the time to speak your piece. It's looking like everybody pretty much thinks we got it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just end with I think the the underlying tone of what we talked about is whether it's boat and RV storage or it's marina space and whatever amenity package you have at your marina, the amenities and the services that you can provide are what are going to differentiate yourself. And even though the boat and RV space has a lower barrier to entry, both from I think an acquisition side and a development side, it's what you do within that development. And we focus on simple little things from an air compressor and an ice machine to a wash bay and a dump station, like the little things that customer is looking for, again, to make their experience of dealing with these nice expensive toys, make it as hands off and seamless and easy as possible. So I think underlying there's the synergies, there's a lot of differences between the two, but it comes down to that customer service and the amenity package that you're providing to make that experience as good as possible.
Thank you, Mychal. And I think we got it. Before we go, what I'd like to do is go around one more time, have you give your name, your company, and your contact information for anybody who may view this and want to reach out to you. So I'd like to start with Neil. And Neil, I do want to thank you. Not only have you taught me so much about the boat and RV storage segment and over the years, and I probably picked your brain on too many things, but I really,
No,
really
you're good.
appreciate your expertise and involvement. But it's really cool to now be going through this process again with you on the marina.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing all of your knowledge today as well. So again, name, company, and just contact information.
Yeah, Neil Dyer, BlueGate Boat and RV Storage and Marinas. You can reach me on my cell, 615-456-2984. If you're ever interested in learning more about marinas or investing in marinas, would love to chat with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Neil. And Andy.
Yeah, Andy Hayes. Our company's Go Outdoors, and you can also reach me by my cell at 770-519-8113. We'd love to talk with you and answer any questions you may have.
Thanks, Andy. And Hamish.
Hamish Bell, Forge Building
Hamish.
Company. The best place to contact us would be on our website, forgebuildings.com. And yeah, thanks.
Thank you. And Mychal.
Yeah, Mychal Gorden, Desert Land Group, either desertlandgroup.com or my cell number 928-230-9876. Would welcome the opportunity to talk to anybody about the boat and RV space or the marina space, especially on the development side.
Thank you all for being here today. I want to quickly, my name is Amy Bix. I'm with Toy Storage Nation. You can find a ton of content, case studies, statistics on the market, whatnot, at toystoragenation.com. We cover the market every single day. We also do full day workshops covering for the boat and RV storage market, but we also cover marina, flex space, truck parking, you name it. Our next workshop will be in Naples, Florida, December 5th. You can find all of the information at our toystoragenation.com website. If you want to reach me, you can get me at 602-909-3910. Thank you everyone for watching. And again, once again, thanks you all for sharing your expertise today.
You're welcome. Thanks, Amy.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Amy. And that was a lot of fun, everybody. Great meeting you.